Hey art friends, this is Miss TP. You're watching Miss TP Draw Stuff, and I'm gonna be drawing a tobacco flower. That's what this is. Now I had it laid down, but it was I didn't like the profile of the flower. It was a little too boring. But I really love the petals and how they, come to these little points here, like that you can see that it's sort of a trumpety flower. So I'm holding it in my hand to draw instead of laying it down on the page of the sketchbook. So if you tuned in to my last video, my daughter Evie hung out with us for a bit, which was fun. Always love to have her around. It did make the video a bit longer because we were waiting on her mystery drawing to be finished. But she wanted me to tell you she is not going to be in this video. That was her choice. And she is doing something else today. So, sorry. I'll let you know, probably in the title, if Evie's ever in one of my videos, in case that's something you want to watch. Alright, here's the little base. I enlarged this one a little bit in the drawing. Yeah, it's quite small. That's a surprising thing about tobacco. The plants are huge. They're like 7 feet tall, and the one of the leaves is as long as my thigh and like twice as wide. It's just a big plant, and at the top it has a whole bunch of these tiny flowers. And what's even more amazing is the seeds. They're down here in the little base. When the flower falls off and you let this dry up, you can pull it open like a little paper, and there are like hundreds of seeds in there. Tiny, tiny, tiny little specks of seeds. And it's amazing. One tobacco plant could produce thousands of other tobacco plants. Pretty amazing. Now, we don't grow tobacco like as a crop. My husband's family comes from North Carolina, and they used to, at one time, have a tobacco farm. They don't have that anymore, and most of them I don't think even live there anymore. But he likes to grow a few tobacco plants every summer, just as a little memento of his family and their home. So we grow them. We don't do anything with them. We just grow them, and they're pretty. They're big, big, tall, pretty plants. And honestly, the hummingbirds absolutely love them. Hummingbirds love little trumpety flowers like this. They stick their long, skinny beaks down in there. They love it. So it is fun to have these in the yard when it's time for hummingbirds to be around, and then you can really watch them. Kind of funny what all these petals are doing. Some of them are kind of obvious, doing obvious petal things. And then others, like the ones back here, you might not be able to see from the same angle that I'm looking, but they fold over on top of each other and stuff. Lots of little folds. That's neat. Alright, so then we've got the stuff inside of here. I'm just going to throw a quick little shade right there to help me see sort of the movement of the lines. Petals always have like these little veins. Sometimes you can't see them, but they're there. I've talked before about how things in nature repeat, images and elements in nature repeat in other things. Plants are a great way to see that. Be a little bit more delicate with these lines because they're closer to us, a bit more obvious. The other thing that really loves tobacco are tobacco worms. Very similar to tomato worms. They look a lot the same. In fact, I believe there's a plant relationship between tobacco and tomatoes. Like they are related. So one day I was out in my yard and I found a tobacco worm on a tobacco plant, or maybe it was on a tomato plant. I don't remember. And I tried to pull it off. I was just going to pull it off of the plant, toss it aside, and it struck at me like a snake. It was definitely not a snake. It's definitely a caterpillar. But it did just sort of lash out at me several times, and I was a little scared of it. So I didn't know, like, did these things sting? I didn't think they stung, but for it to act that way made me think, what if it's a stinging kind of caterpillar? So I got it onto a stick and I tossed it into the chicken pen. We had chickens at that time. They would not eat it. They refused. I think it was when it was striking at me, it was actually spitting something, some kind of substance at me, and I imagine it was not a good smelling substance. And that's why the chickens wouldn't have anything to do with it. Defense mechanism, I suppose. Pretty good one, it worked. Okay, I don't think this drawing's going to take us very long today. Let's see, so I'm having to move the flower a little bit. It's a good thing I'm done with the top because I need to be able to see the little stem down here. There we go, where I broke it off. I think these are the same seeds. Like this tobacco plant grew from the seeds that my husband planted, or harvested, I should say, from those first tobacco plants that we grew. And the seeds, you have to be so careful with them. They're quite delicate. You have to plant them in their own little tiny pots early in the season, and until they get big enough to transplant into larger pots and eventually the ground. But they have to be pretty big before you can really move them because they are so delicate. It's amazing that something so tiny can turn into this giant big plant. Even more amazing to me every time I think about it that someone thought, oh, I will dry out this plant and smoke it. It's amazing how humans arrived at some conclusions to me. Like, how did they come up with that? But somebody somewhere did. All right, there it is. I do sort of want to shade these petals a little bit. I really do feel like I should have, oh no, I've turned it too much. I can't remember which petal was which. I should have sharpened my pencil before I started this. That pink on the ends, it is a darker value than the rest of the petals. So I do want to show that is slightly darker. I think at one time I also had family in North Carolina, like my husband's family, but I don't, I mean, my family's not been there in a very long time, so it's not as important to us, but he's only a few generations removed from the farming in North Carolina, and they still often visited there when he was a little boy. So it's still quite important to him. And this is like just a little reminder of this place where he has happy memories that were important to him. All right, I like it. I think that'll do. And now, as always, I can look back and see places where I'd like to darken, add some line weight to make some things stand out a bit more. Um, but there's always that. There's always that. But I think the drawing itself is basically finished. All right. Thanks, art friends. Glad this was a quick one for you, and I hope to see you next time. Bye, art friends.